Hello and welcome back. This is Amanda from hookemcreations, and today I have a new yarn review for you. You probably have been seeing Red Heart's all-in-one granny square yarn either from a content creator or by simply walking into Joann's. Let me start by saying I am not affiliated with Yarnspirations, Red Heart Yarn, Joann's, or Coats & Clark. I purchased this yarn with my own money. I'm not being paid for this review. This yarn piqued my interest and I had questions that needed to be answered, as I'm sure all of you who are watching this video. I don't necessarily call myself a yarn snob. I do have preferred choices when it comes to yarn. I like to try yarn at least once and create my own perspective from there. Typically, Red Heart yarn is not my preferred choice for many reasons. When testing this yarn, I put all my beliefs and feelings about Red Heart yarn to the side so I could have a fresh perspective, which, believe me, is not an easy task to do. I am rating this yarn out of a 5 yarn skein scale, so let's get to it. Starting with the yarn. Red Heart all-in-one granny square yarn uses the plan pulling concept or technique that crocheters and knitters use when working with striped yarn. This yarn allows the crocheter to continue to crochet a traditional granny square without changing colors, thus less to weave in at the end. Or if you are like me, you weave in your ends while you continue to crochet. However, it is a constant game of tension. I found that in each round, I held my tension differently from the previous round, thus removing one headache, changing colors and weaving in ends, and creating a new one, holding your tension so the color can change when it's supposed to. According to the label, this yarn is categorized as a worsted weight yarn or number 4 medium. Each skein weighs 8.8 ounces or 250 grams, which measures out to be 417 yards or 381 meters. They recommend a US I9 5.5 millimeter crochet hook or whatever crochet hook meets the 6-inch gauge. It is 100% acrylic, and each skein, according to the label, makes 14 granny squares. However, I did manage to make 15 out of one skein. The label also comes with its own traditional granny square pattern on the back. However, I was able to use other methods and patterns to achieve the traditional granny square with ease. More on that later. When working with this yarn, I found it soft enough to work with without being annoyed with the coating that Red Heart puts on their yarn to bind the fibers together. The coating is still there and it will be gone once you wash it. And no, I'm not going to pre-wash my yarn before using it. With these granny squares, I worked with my dots crochet hooks from We Crochet, and I found that the yarn was splitting constantly. I did switch over to my Clover Amour crochet hooks and still found the same problem. The yarn splits constantly. Though probably the best part about this yarn is the easy access to the center pole. No need to dig into the skein to find it. It's right there ready to go. I did find it helpful when working with the yarn to pull out the yarn till the color changes. This allows you to visually plan your round. After working with a few squares, you get a general idea of how to crochet the granny square, and becomes a lot easier after that. According to the Yarnspirations website, there are 16 different colorways. And according to Joann's website, there are 13 different colorways. Many of the colorways are sold out. I purchased the white pink punch colorway, and I'm not too thrilled with it. If you ask a crocheter what their biggest pet peeve is about yarn, they most likely will tell you all the same thing: dye lot numbers. The yarn I purchased came from the same dye lot, and I can see significant differences from skein to skein. For starters, the white is not really white. It is white with leftover residue from the pink row before. I even placed 2 granny squares together, each from a different skein, but from the same dye lot. It even says on the label, buy more of the same dye lot to complete the project. The whole purpose of buying yarn from the same dye lot is to have consistency of color. And right now that's not holding true. The advertising and the label says it's supposed to be white, and I expect it to be white. I'm fine with a few specks here and there on the white round, especially around the color changing area, but for it to change the color completely is unacceptable. The reason I grabbed this colorway was so I can make myself a Valentine themed blanket. I can't really say anything bad about the other colorway options, mostly because I just don't gravitate towards those colors. They are marketing to the retro style, the 1960s and 70s style of crocheters, since the granny square was huge during that time. And that's perfectly fine with me. That tells me they know who their target audience is. If I were to pick a different colorway, it would be the Aran Soft Sky colorway. It's a little bit closer to my personal color palette and motif. According to Joann's website, the all-in-one granny square yarn is priced at $9.49, and the Yarnspirations website, the yarn is priced at $9.99. Overall, $10. I did purchase my yarn during the Joann's Yarnormous sale, as well as used other coupons to bring the price down to $5.83 per skein. I'll be straight honest with you all about the price. The money is going to the idea, the research, and the engineering to create this yarn. They are not creating a new pattern, they are not creating new colors, and they definitely are not adding any quality to their yarn. They are simply creating a solution to our multicolored granny squared problem, weaving in ends. As I mentioned earlier, the yarn does come with a traditional granny square pattern, and it was my least favorite of the three that I tried with this yarn. The pattern that comes with the yarn starts each round with a chain 6, which by the end leaves little to no room to double crochet 2 in that opening, therefore crocheting over the chain stitches, giving a slanted corner look. The second method I tried was the chain 3 or 4 at the start of each row, creating a line of chain stitches up the middle. I do have a video tutorial on how to do this particular granny square, which I will link here in the upper right corner. This is a granny square that I grew accustomed to and I was comfortable doing. In that particular video, I did do a chain 2 instead of a chain 3 at the start of each round and in each of the corners. It works well with solid color granny squares, but not so much with the color changing. The third method I tried was the stack 2 single crochet at the start of each round. Thanks to Karen from Hooked Up Crochet for reminding me of this method. I like this method because it allows the crocheter to create the illusion that each round starts brand new without chain stitches. And chain stitches were not needed. It covers up the color changes and it creates crisp, clean rounds. This quickly became my favorite of the 3 methods, and I will continue using this method for the rest of my project. I also took the liberty to try other granny squares with this yarn, and sadly the results are not what I was hoping for, but I also figured that this would be the end result. Sadly, you cannot do any other granny square besides the traditional granny square with this yarn. Overall, I give this yarn a 3.5 out of 5 yarn skeins, mainly for the idea of creating a all-in-one granny square yarn so there are less ends to weave in at the end. I love the center pull is easy to find and ready to go. This is a great yarn to introduce planned pulling for those who have never done it before, and there's not a lot of planning to do on your part. All you have to do is crochet a traditional granny square. The only question remains, what are you going to make with those granny squares? The biggest flaw with this yarn that I cannot overlook is the lack of color consistency from skein to skein within the same dye lot. If I'm going to spend $10 a skein, I expect color consistency as advertised. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment down in the comment section below, and share it with a friend who might be interested in this yarn. So until next time, happy crafting.